Hello and welcome to Showband Stories. My guest this week is the legendary ex-Showband star and broadcaster, George Jones.
Yeah, not the country singer.
Not the country singer.
Because he's no longer with us.
This is the more famous George Jones.
Oh, don't know about that. Nice to be here, Steve.
It's great to see you. George, you know, I've always said that every man and woman that ever stood on a stage in the north or north of the border was a hero for me, was a hero, and hats off to every one of them. But you actually lived there. The rest of us were able to go up there, do our gigs and come back down most of the time. But you lived there. How important were the show bands to the north?
Well, I think the show bands in general were important to all of Ireland, primarily because they were just a complete, how would you say, industry.
Yes.
Since the late 50s. But coming into the time when the Troubles started, the show bands were sort of coming to an end.
Yes.
The happy days of people going out to ballrooms and dancing as a hobby, and you didn't care who was who or what were you or where were you from, those days were gradually coming to an end, sadly. What we found the hardest in the north was to keep laughing through it all, to keep a smile on our face, because the tragedies were just horrendous. And it hit home to musicians really hard. And I think at the offset of that, it started to be that the centre of Belfast and the centre of the north really was trying to be crushed for happiness. They were trying to rule out places where people came, met and had fun. They were disappearing terribly. So it was our job really, I suppose, to still keep providing the music. And still, in my case, by that time I'd gone into a lot of comedy. Was still to try and keep the laughter in people's system. The music, the memories of the show bands, the dance halls, they all remained firm, and we just had to keep going.
The music, and apart from the music was an incredible power for good up there, because when people went in to see you or to see us or any of the bands, sectarianism was left outside the door, wasn't it?
That's right. That's right.
A young Catholic boy saw a young Protestant girl, or vice versa, and they fell in love, and that was it.
You see, that's the way it was. If I go back to the show band days, there was never talk of religion or what one band was. Every band had mixed religions in it. Primarily, the main thing was the music. And if some smart guys would come up to you and say, "Hey, big lad, are you a Catholic or a Protestant?" I used to say, "I'm a musician."
Yes. Which is a great religion, isn't it?
And it just stopped, because music crosses all boundaries.
It does.
And it crosses all borders, and also all religions too as well.
Look, your story goes back to, you were always an innovator, but it goes back to a very, very important time. And
you're making me feel old now, Steve.
Well, that makes me feel good, actually, because I have somebody who was there before me. But you were instrumental, excuse the pun, in starting, or at least encouraging, or being there at the beginning of some very, very important careers. You had a show band called the Monarchs.
That's right. Well, even before that, I mean, I think every young boy, there was the guitar boom came out. That's what started it. And it was a guy called Lonnie Donegan, skiffle music. But it announced the arrival of the scene of the guitar for general purpose and use. Before that, it was people like Gene Autry, the singing cowboy, the odd time you would have seen Roy Rogers. You've seen it on black and white movies, but you never thought anything of it. But when people started appearing on television, playing them in groups, I said, I want one of those. And I started watching the black and white TV, and all the shows that were on at that time was Wham and Oh Boy and Boy Meets Girls and black and white, and I just wanted to play what they did. So a crowd of us got together, got guitars, and there was one guy on our street who is now a pastor, a well-known pastor in the church. And his family were the only family that were able to afford guitar lessons. So he went to the guitar lessons, and we all met up afterwards, and we all copied him. But we went on and went on and went on, and I practiced till the blood ran out of my fingers. 4 o'clock in the morning, I was under the blankets. My mother would come in and say, "You'll waken your dad up." He said, "Give us that." I couldn't wake your father up. So that was it. It progressed from 11, and then people started arriving around at our house. We went to school, met our drummer in school, met another buddy of mine and who went on the rest of my life playing with. He was a guitar player, and then a wee fella arrived from around the corner called Van Morrison. And he had his guitar, he wanted to join in, and we were playing all songs of the period. And then electric came along, so we all had to get electric guitars. And that's when I changed to a bass guitar. So we practiced, and then one night out of the blue, we were practicing a Dwayne Eddy song called Peter Gunn.
I know.
And Van arrived around with a case, and it wasn't a guitar case. And I said, "What's that?" He says, "My dad bought me that. It's a saxophone." I says, "Brass, this is fantastic. Can you blow anything?" He says, "I can blow one note so far." I says, "What is it, F?" I says, "Okay, take it out." And we started playing Peter Gunn. You know, it went then the brass came in, and he could only blow the one note. But we all went, "Yeah, it's a real band."
Showband.
And from that point onwards, we decided we want brass in the band.
Yes.
And it grew and grew and grew.
Yes.
And we changed our name from Danny Sands and the Thunderbolts to the Monarchs. So we started playing around the local halls to do the showband circuit. But with Van's influence and my early influences, which were people like Ray Charles, Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly, that was always in our system. And to start playing Johnny Tillett's numbers, you know, "Send me the pillow." This is what was required of the dance in the dance halls.
Before we leave that, you mentioned Buddy Holly. You were a huge fan, weren't you?
Buddy Holly was my idol. I think he was one of the great trailblazers, even more so than Elvis, because Elvis, as you know, didn't write songs.
Yeah.
But Buddy Holly, I classed him as a pioneer, a young lad from Lubbock in Texas, who was so adamant that he walked out of studios who wanted to record him to sing country songs because he was from Texas.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, "No, I want my own songs. I've got written my own songs," and they wouldn't let him do it. Everything had to be with a country beat. So he stormed out of it. But his music and his songs to this day have influenced so many people. I mean, you mentioned Paul McCartney.
Yes.
Paul McCartney bought the whole Buddy Holly catalogue.
Yes.
So he did.
Yes.
So to me, he was my man, apart from the fact he wore glasses, and I had...
I was wondering, were they real glasses or were they Buddy Holly glasses or even Hank Marvin glasses?
They're a mixture of the three.
Would you mind giving us a little a sneak preview or a sneak listen to some of the stuff that Buddy Holly
I'll do well, I mean, there's a couple of songs that I'll do one for you in full in a wee moment, which is a favourite of mine. But I mean, when he started doing things like Peggy Sue,
yes.
You know, you had this beat, and I listened to Radio Luxembourg every Sunday night just to hear this one song. I love you, Peggy Sue, with a love so rare and true. Oh, Peggy, my Peggy Sue. Oh, I love you, gal, and I want you, Peggy Sue. And I listened every night when that was in the charts. And there was something about Buddy Holly to me was so charismatic. Yeah. Then, because of radio, I was so lucky later on to meet and interview some of the great idols that inspired me. And one of the greatest interviews I ever did in the BBC was I spent 1 hour with the original Crickets.
George, before we leave Buddy Holly and the Crickets, you promised you'd do a full Buddy Holly song.
Yes, I will.
Will you do that?
Yeah, it's a song that's very close to my heart for a particular reason. There was a great lad from County Antrim who remains one of the unsung heroes in the music scene in the 60s called David McWilliams. The Days of Pearly Spencer, you remember, beautiful song. Yes. And I got an album of his one time. He's a really good friend, and on it was 2 versions of Buddy Holly songs, which I thought were fabulous. One was Learning the Game, and the other one is this one I'm going to do for you, which was one of Buddy's simpler songs called Peggy Sue Got Married.
George Jones with Peggy Sue Got Married.
Please don't tell, no, 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 don't say that I told you so, yeah. I just heard a word from a friend. I don't say that it's true, I just leave it up to you, yeah. If you don't believe, I'll understand. Do you recall the girl that's been in nearly every song? This is what I heard, of course. The story could be wrong. She's the one I've been told, and she's wearing a band of gold, yeah. Peggy Sue got married not long ago. Recall the girl that's in nearly every song. This is what I heard, of course. A story could be wrong. She's the one I've been told, and she's wearing a band of gold, yeah. Peggy Sue got married not long ago. Peggy Sue got married not long ago.
What I want you to tell me about now is the next phase of your journey, which is the breakup, because there's always something new on the horizon, isn't there?
Yeah.
So,
well, the Monarchs as a show band, we realised was not going to be for us, right, for about 5 or 6 of us. And we decided, with Van's influence, that we wanted to be a rock band, primarily. Yeah. A lot of blues, through Van's father's collection, which was massive. He was bringing this stuff around, we were learning it. And just about that time, there was a couple of guys came over. One was a singer, one was a drummer. And we knew a manager. They said, let's get over to Scotland. Now, at that time, we were working, right? And it was taboo to give up your job. Go professional.
What were you working on?
I was a telegram boy, and then I was a postman.
Lovely.
In early days. But I remember I was telling you about my father saying it was a load of old rubbish, the whole thing. Yeah. He nearly took rickets. He nearly went berserk when I give up your job. What are you thinking about, you see? And during the time when I told you that he thought it was a load of rubbish, the skiffle period, I went round to a hall with the group, and my sister charged, I think it was threepence at the time, to get in. And all the neighbours came in to hear our 5 songs we'd learned, and my father came round, cap on, sat down, took his cap off and listened. And at the end of it, everybody was all clapping, you know, from the neighbourhood. I said, well, Dad, what did you think of that? He said, it was all right. And this particular words or phrase that he said to me has stuck with me the rest of my life. And in actual fact, I'm going to have that as the title of a book I'm writing. He knew nothing about music, but he watched me on stage and he turned around and he said, it was very good, but you'll never get anywhere playing that old ukulele. Lovely. And that's the title of the book.
You'll never get anywhere.
So needless to say, when I gave up my job, he went berserk. Yeah. But we said, this is what we want to do. And we all gave up our job, Van Morrison, everybody, and we got on the Glasgow boat out of Belfast. I've still got photographs of it, actually. And we headed out in the boat. We arrived in Scotland, and the guy was down to meet us, the so-called manager, with 6 to 8 weeks' work. He had a weekend of work, and we had given our jobs up. Oh. Now, that was the start of what we would call starving for your art and music, because we did. Yes. We lived in his council house in Pollock in Glasgow with him, his wife, his 4 kids, and his mother-in-law, and 6 of us in the one house. And it was during the summer. We had to get out into the garden to get some air, and we started playing out in the garden just to amuse ourselves. We said, what we're going to do, we're going to have to do some. We were young lads, never been out of Belfast. So we started driving around Scotland, picking up gigs. Right, so we starved till we got a gig, and we got a gig, we were able to eat. Right. So to cut a long story short, anyway, we eventually got gigs, and we started playing. And our last gig, before we made the decision, was the Beach Ballroom in Aberdeen, which is still there, and show bands have all played it. And we decided on that night that we were going to go to London. That was our big decision. Okay. And you may ask why. Well, we were so naive, we simply thought that if you went to London, you would make it. You'd get discovered. Because
and Van wasn't the singer in the band?
Yeah, Van just played saxophone. He sang a few songs.
Did he write anything?
No, never. He was writing a bit of poetry, but never did we dream he was going to be a songwriter. Yeah. So we went to London, Stephen, with all our money, pulled it together, and we starved for 2 weeks in London.
Where did you stay then?
Well, we didn't know anywhere in London. We had never been out of Belfast, as I keep saying. We drove around the West End because that was the showbiz place.
Oh, absolutely.
So we said, if we drive around, somebody will discover us. You know what I mean? Right? That's how naive we were. And the Beatles were just starting to come out. You know, I'm talking about 61 period, 62. And for 2 weeks we starved with nothing. We dipped our fingers into cremola foam and drinking chocolate to live. Yeah. And we got moved on from car park to car park because the police started knowing us. We're like vagrants. We're sleeping in the minibus, 6 of us. But now this next story I'm going to tell you as part of this, you're not going to believe, because it was pure fate. I was about to ring home because my father, I told you, he drove lorries. He was a sort of furniture remover. He was the only one on our street with a phone. Right. This is way back. And I knew that if I phoned him, told my mother, she'd maybe get his money over to get us home and give it all up. And we were just about to do that, and we're walking around Leicester Square, and we bumped into this guy who we had backed on a couple of gigs in Scotland. His name was Don Charles. He had a one-hit wonder called The Hermit of Misty Mountain. Crept into the charts and crept out again quickly. He said, "What are you guys doing here?" What? I says, "Well, we just came down to London to think we were going to make it." He says, "Are you mad?" You know, so he took us to the Wimpy Bar, which was the forerunner of McDonald's. Yes, yeah. And of course, sparks were coming out of the knife before it. We're eating a while, I guess. He says, "I'm going to help you guys because you've got a good band." And he took our suits. He says, "Where's your suits?" The suits were like accordions, you know, they're all been folded up.
So you would have been wearing suits when you're playing?
When we're playing, all had band suits, but they were all crumpled up in the wagon, you know, with the rest of the gear. I says, "What are you going to do with those?" He says, "I'm going to take them to get cleaned." I says, "Get cleaned? What are you talking about?" He says, 1 hour cleanest down the road. And I says, 1 hour, get out of here. We were from Belfast. It was 3 days to get suits cleaned in those days. He came back with these suits in polythene bags. I'd never seen polythene before. I says, "That's fantastic, they're right new." Took us into Hyde Park, made us hang from trees, did publicity shots. He says, "I'm taking those to my agent." He loved the band, started getting his work around the American bases where she thought we'd be suitable.
Yes.
And within 3 weeks to a month of us about to go home, we were sitting in audition to German club owners with 10 other bands.
Your trip to Heidelberg was... this was a pivotal point, really, wasn't it? If it had gone one way or the other, the consequences of it, of you going back home or being disillusioned.
Heidelberg in Germany was a big step for us, but I suppose the main pivotal point, as you call it, was the fact that we could have gone home if we hadn't met that one guy in the blue, out of the blue, Leicester Square, among thousands of people. You not think fate played a part? Because I think if we had gone home, we'd have probably dispersed into the other bands and not stayed as the Monarchs. Because when we went to Germany, which was the American sector, even Van started to experience American GIs, black guys who were very blues orientated. They used to come and jam with us. And Van's whole life changed because they're looking at his father's albums at home in East Belfast. He was suddenly playing with black guys. So it really motivated him, I think, that he wanted to be blues and blues only.
But you had a number in the charts.
Yes, with a hit record in 1963, got to number 5. I sang it
in the German
in the German charts, in '63, and we still have copies of it today. Funny enough, in Van, and we all meet up in East Belfast and we sort of laugh at it because it was called Boo Zoo Hully Gully. Wonderful title, but it got into the charts. But we didn't know until we come home that it had gone into the charts. But we came home. I joined Showbands. My mother kept saying, "It's about time you earned money." And Van went back to London, and I knew that he had this attraction for the big blues scene. And then he came back to Belfast and tried to coax all of the Monarchs to start a band and play only blues. But by that time he said, "No, we've starved enough. We're earning good money now." And he went round, found a band, formed them, and the rest is history. And that was all around that one point, because if we had gone home and not gone to Germany, I don't think any of us could have afforded even to go back to London again.
But one of the great influences in your life has always influenced you, even to this day, was the fabulous Ray Charles.
Absolutely, and that came in Germany too, when the American GIs taught us all about Ray Charles, and then we realised that how he was called the High Priest of Soul. And he was just my idol.
Also R&B, wasn't he? He was like...
he could sing anything, country. He could sing ballads. I can't stop loving
That's
you.
right. He actually surprised him. He went country, didn't he?
Yeah, but he knew that he had to open up his whole spectrum of music. And, you know, over the years of being on radio and broadcasting, I met many, many great stars. And I don't say that flippantly. It's been an honour to do it. But there's very few people that I would put the tag of genius on. And he was a genius.
Well, will you give us snippet of genius here. And
You're asking me to emulate a genius here.
well, look,
Yes,
why not stay up there at that height? You know,
Oh, well, okay.
and give us a Ray Charles number.
I'll give you one of my favourites. It was also recorded by Eddie Cochran, the great rock star, and it's called Hallelujah, I Love Her So.
George Jones with Hallelujah and I Love Her So.
1, 2, 3, 4. Let me tell you about a girl I know. She's my baby and she loves me so. Every morning when the sun comes up, I said, she brings me coffee in my favorite cup. Yes, I know, man, I know. Hey, hallelujah, I just love my baby so. When I'm in trouble and I need a friend, I know she'll stick with me until the end. Hey, people smile and ask me how I know. I say, she's my baby and she'll love me so. Yes, I know, man, I know. Yeah, hallelujah, I just love my baby so. Hey, but when I call her on the telephone, baby, say, honey, listen, I'm feeling all alone, child. By the time I count to 1, 2, 3, 4, I hear her on my door. But in the evening when the sun goes down and there ain't nobody else around here, she kisses me and then she holds me tight. She says, hey, pretty baby, everything's all right. Yes, I know, man, I know. Yeah, hallelujah, I just love my baby so. Tony Boy, hey! Woo! Yeah! Hit it up! Yeah! Ready? But listen to me now when I call her on the telephone, baby. I said, you listen, honey, I'm right here and I'm all alone, child. By the time I count to all them numbers, I hear her on my door. But in the evening when the sun goes down and there ain't nobody else around, yeah, she kisses me and then she holds me tight. She says, hubba, hubba, baby, everything's all right. Yes, I know, man, I know. Hey, hallelujah, I just love my baby so. Hallelujah, I just love my baby so. Hallelujah.